Welcome to another episode of Leadership Live. My name is Steve Lois, and I'm the founder of the Lois Leadership Institute. And today we're going to have a little bit of a different conversation. We're going to talk about leadership from a point where you may not actually expect it. We often take leadership and focus on leaders with actual titles, whether it's a CEO or something else. But today we've got a little different spin on this, where we have leadership without an actual title of leadership, but where you still have to influence people, build trust, do all the same things that a leader with a title actually does. And because of that, we've brought on a new guest, David Malcolm. David,
Hello.
thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So you're a wonderful realtor, from what I've heard. Give the audience a little bit of your background, where you're at, where you do what you do, David.
I'm currently an independent agent with Charles Reinhardt Realtors now. I began my real estate career back in 2005 and with Keller Williams. Moved on to Remerica Hometown 1 at one point, and I've been with Reinhardt since 2015. And I just love serving my community and serving my friends and my sphere of influence, my clients. That's what I like to do.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because you do so much more than just being a realtor. You're influential in your community. You're connected all over the place. Tell us a little bit more about that first.
I was raised by a group of givers, so I spend a lot of time, my free time, volunteering for different charities. I play Santa Claus. I have been doing that for like 5 years for the kids. Do fundraisers for Humane Society, fundraisers for people with food insecurities, housing insecurities, stuff like that. Those things are important to me, and I can never seem to say no to volunteering for those.
Which is how we met.
Interests. Yes,
actually.
Yes.
Through Leah here, but because of supporting a nonprofit. That's how we met.
Yep.
So a lot of people think about leadership only from the perspective of having a title, like I said in the opening of this. But you're kind of a unique role, because you're a realtor, but you're still a leader in the community. You're still connected, and you're still guiding your clients, which is a big focus of what we do here at the Lois Leadership. Lois Leadership Institute. It's all about guiding team members. So talk about how you do that with your clients. One of the most important transactions of their life, buying a house, selling a house. How do you guide them through that?
First, I like to establish trust. I just want to be honest and open and work within my client's best interest in every single transaction that I have. And I don't think about money. I don't think about anything. It's my clients. It's at the end of the day, are they going to be happy with the results of our entire transaction, and be able to move into a home that they love and enjoy for the rest of their lives, or however long they choose to be there, and just establish some trust with honesty and work with integrity, and hopefully establish a relationship, a long-term relationship, long after the transaction is over. I love that a lot of my clients have become friends, personal friends.
Yep.
I've traveled with some of my clients, as friends afterwards. We get together. I get invited to family events and whatnot. I just want to establish those relationships, and then hopefully leverage those relationships in the future. And have my clients continue to help me in my business because of the work that I've done for them.
Well, so let's relate that to leadership as most people think about it in terms of leadership. You said the first thing is you got to build trust. You meet somebody for the first time in your profession as a realtor. How do you go about building that initial piece of trust? Because this is something that leaders struggle with. How do they build trust with their team member? It's the same thing that you do with your clients. How do you do that?
Again, I don't come with a lot of gimmicks. I don't come with a lot of, tricks of the trade. I mean, I'm me, I'm myself. What you see is what you get. And, my social media pages, I do videos and stuff for people. People see me, on social media, and I'll get a phone call, and I'm just being me no matter what at all times. So,
So you're not changing who you are, You have to be honest to yourself before you can be honest with somebody else. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes. I just lead with respect for the client's needs, their family, and my knowledge of my profession. And if they want it, I'll go after it.
Well, and there's similarities again to what we do on the leadership side of things, building that trust first with each of our team members, like you do with each of your potential clients, future clients, past clients, whatever the case is, and not being somebody that we're not, because ultimately our teams can see through that crap, just like your customers could potentially see through that stuff. But you're also guiding them to make some of the biggest decisions of their life. How do you view that responsibility? Because buying a house, going to college, getting married, having kids, those are the big four. And you're messing with one of the big ones.
Yeah. I love working with first-time home buyers because they're some of the I won't say hardest, but they're sometimes the more complicated people because they don't really know how to get the financing, or they don't know who to use as an inspector. They don't know, who to use as a plumber, an electrician. And I've built a great team of contractors and people in the industry to help them with that. And I normally make sure that I do not refer anyone that I haven't used myself or that I haven't worked with, and that I know is going to do a really good job for my clients. And, after our transaction is over, more times than not, they're very happy with the people that they've worked with and the people that I've led them to take care of, business for them in their real estate transaction.
We have this philosophy that we talk about a lot online and for the Lowe's Leadership Institute. Our focus is on getting the best for people, not just from people.
Yeah.
And you just described exactly that. You said you don't do it just for the dollars. You don't look at everybody just because of the dollar signs that you're going to make off of it, because you have to make money too, right? But everything you just described is about doing for others to get the best for them, not just the best from them. And that's an important leadership principle that we talk about all the time. But not everything goes perfectly in your business. Sometimes the deal falls through. Sometimes something happens. How do you have that difficult conversation with your customers and get them through it?
Sometimes I try and prep clients before we even get started in a transaction. Anything can happen in a real estate transaction. I mean, you can have somebody that's happy and ready to purchase a property one day, and they go home and get buyer's remorse the same night, and they want me to call and rescind their offer. You know what I mean? I hate to be the bearer of bad news for people, but I try not to take it personal, and I hope that my colleagues and buyers or sellers on the other side don't take it personal and understand that things may not work out here, but they will work out at some point. And let's move forward and do what we need to do to get where we need to go.
Have you ever had, and I'm assuming the answer is yes, have you ever had a client or potential client that was just being unrealistic?
Yes.
How do you have that conversation?
I've fired a few clients in my lifetime. If I don't feel that we're a good fit, it's not hard for me to say, hey, look, this is not working. Maybe you should use someone else, or maybe I'm not the person for you.
So the correlation to that could be, and again, I look at everything from a leadership perspective as well. Not everybody is ideal for every leader. Same kind of thing. No. Now, I'm not suggesting to go fire them, but you may need to encourage them to go work for another leader in an organization, just like you're encouraging your customers to potentially work with another realtor.
Yeah, well, we don't all mesh sometimes. So,
true.
And it's okay. It's okay to not, see things the same way. It's okay to disagree on things. But when you figure that out, you have to act on it and make sure that, you do what's right for you, your business, your clients, the people around you, your family, and move on.
But let's assume that you've got somebody who's just showing for the first time, a client of yours for the first time, that they might be a little bit unreasonable, but they haven't done anything out of too crazy, and you've got to have that conversation with them and let them know they're being unreasonable. How do you approach that?
I have hey, look, this is not going to work. I've had some of my best friends working with me on homes and whatnot, and they wanted people to reduce their sale price astronomically low. And
Yep.
I'm like, this is not working. And, and they felt that maybe I wasn't working as hard for them. And I'm like, no, you're just not being realistic here. And then when the house closed afterwards, we had a whole nother conversation. See, I told you that this is why you were being unrealistic in your dreams or whatever it was that you were thinking about. I'm speaking from experience, and I kind of know how things work. And if you allow me to do my job in helping you, I'll get you where you need to be.
How often do you start to poke around and figure out what's the source of why they're being so unrealistic? Like there's usually a reason why somebody's being the way they are.
Immediately, I guess. As soon as I get a red flag, I
Yeah.
have to address it.
And start asking, what do you ask them? How do you dig into them? And this is important because whether you're a realtor dealing with a client, whether you're a leader dealing with one of your team members, or just two people in general, this viewing things from different perspectives is a common problem. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
The problem is that I think often we don't try to understand the other person's perspective at times. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, how do we get here? Where do we want to go? What's the return on the investment you're trying to make here?
Yeah.
Whether it be time, money, expenses on the house or whatever, and how do we develop a plan to reach your goals? Sometimes people are more unrealistic than others, and they have to lose a couple times to see
Sure.
that, okay, I see what he's saying. They have to lose out on a couple of deals or lose out on that house that they truly liked because they're not understanding that I'm telling them to do what they need to do to get it.
Well, and that's, again, I take everything back to this whole idea of leadership. It's the same thing of letting your team members make the mistakes sometimes, because sometimes they don't get it, and that's okay. Letting them go out there and lose the deal, letting them go out there and make the mistake internally. There's a ton of correlation between what you do every day and how we view and how we should be viewing leadership in the first place. People think it's so different, but it's not. Yeah. What we're doing is so similar.
Yeah, I learned from one of my managers, one of my favorite managers of all time. His name is Martin Thomas, and he empowered all of. I worked at Washtenaw Community College.
Yeah.
He empowered all of his employees to make decisions. Sometimes we made the wrong decision, but we could talk about it and we could work and make sure that we never made those decisions again. And if he felt that if he had to make every decision for us, he didn't need us there. Like he empowered all of his employees to just do the right thing, and everything would work itself out.
Did you ever make one of those decisions that was a mistake?
I did.
What did he do? How'd you respond? How did he respond?
He sat down, he talked to me, and I immediately took responsibility for my mistake and said that I wouldn't let it happen again. And it didn't hurt or maim anybody, but we both had an understanding that that wasn't the right decision to make.
Did he ask you questions, I assume, about why you made that particular decision?
Yeah, Martin was a pretty good guy at asking questions or staring you down and bringing the answers out of you.
However,
just by looking at you, you know what I mean? He made you want to give up the answers. But he taught me a lot about managing, being a leader, and making people want to work for you and work with you.
What were some of the unique, since you're talking about him, what were some of the unique differences you saw in him as a leader versus all the other leaders you know, which is a ton, because you're so well connected.
Yeah.
What did you see in him beyond what you just described that made him a real good leader?
He understood that the people that worked for him actually did the work, and that they, I'm speaking in third person, but he understood that we were the ones that were actually doing the work that, he was charging us to do. And at the end of the day, if we did what we were supposed to do and did things the right way, it made the whole group look awesome, including him. So
you made you to want to do it right for him, almost.
I've never wanted to work more for an individual in my life. like I worked for that man. He was a great mentor, a great leader.
So kind of go along the same lines of that, and now moving to your realtor, your current, what you've been doing for a long time. Have you had, give me a time where, if you don't mind sharing, this, you don't have to, but if you don't mind sharing, where you made a mistake with one of your clients. It was something that was on you, oversight, a misstep, or so on. How did you regain their trust if you did? And what'd you learn from that?
Um,
If you've got one.
I just had one. I had a client that really wanted to purchase a property, and they wanted it for recreational purposes. In hindsight, I shouldn't have allowed. I can't say allowed. I should have instructed them not to purchase this property, minus some contingencies in the contract,
Okay.
because they wanted to back out after they found out the seller was not being truthful in his disclosures.
Okay.
And I kind of left them open to, you know, some liability there. We ended up getting out of it, but he just wanted the property. He wanted to, buy it, and I should have been a little more. I wanted him to have it, and I knew that there were multiple offers on there, and he was willing to do just about anything to get it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might have to put some things in there that makes your offer not look so clean, but protects your client a little better.
So taking that learning and taking out of the context of being a realtor for a second, how do you apply that learning to life in general, to relationships, to communication? Is there a way that you apply that lesson?
Pay attention, make sure that my I's are dotted and my T's are crossed, and make sure that at all cost, I get it. I want my client to have the property that they want, but at the same time, making sure that they are completely protected in that situation is most important.
So you were introduced to me by an individual here, Leah, who knows you very well, and she keeps describing you as even all the time. She even said it a little earlier before she left here, before we started recording this thing, right? So, but you're in a business that's pretty emotionally charged because they're dealing with personal finances, losing homes, buying homes, whatever the case is. How do you manage to keep your emotions at bay all the time?
Customers always right, even when they're wrong.
But how do you control that from an emotion? Because you're a pretty emotionally intelligent guy, because we've spent some time together too. How do you manage yourself? Because you're always cool. You're always calm.
I just try not to worry about much. You know what I mean? Everything can be fixed.
Sure.
In real estate, that's my thing. Everything can be fixed. I try not to worry about much, and if we're truly connected, we can resolve anything just with a simple conversation, a pick up of a phone or a handwritten note or whatever. I mean, you can resolve just about anything.
Now, look, before you go on, listen to what David just said. You can resolve almost anything. If you have that relationship, you pick up the phone. That is leadership guiding right there. There's no difference in what you just said and how we describe this whole idea of leadership. But keep going with that.
Yeah, I Leah describes me as that way.
She does.
Like I said, I am a Gemini. I do have a switch. I don't like for that switch to be, tripped, but
Yeah.
I just, I like to see people happy. I want to be happy. I don't want to make anybody unhappy. At the end of the day, I have a job and I work in a profession where, it can be pretty stressful, but at the end of those transactions, for the most part, people are happy. I love helping older people make their transition to, downsizing or whatever. I have a widow right now that I'm working with, and she has 5 kids, a couple big boys. I want to make that whole family happy and that woman happy because, I know how I was about my mother. You know what I mean? And I have this fragile 80-something-year-old woman here. I want to make sure she's good. I want to make sure that when she goes to church on Sunday and prays, she prays for David as well, because I did her a good job, and she doesn't feel like anybody, caused any harm to her or whatever. I just like to make people happy. I like to successfully um, cultivate relationships and hold on to them. We only get one chance at this life, so making those relationships is important to me.
So let's go a little further with that because you are the consummate networker. Like you're everywhere. You're on social. You know everybody, where everybody is. Every time we were together and you knew some people when we were together. It's like, how do you manage that? And I say that because from a leadership perspective, relationships are everything. Everything that we do is relationships. But you're like the artist when it comes to that. How do you go about doing what you do? I know we talked about building trust earlier, but like you're just a natural at this, David. So think about it from an advice. If you're giving advice to a bunch of leaders, I don't care if they're brand new or if they've been doing it, if they're a CEO and they've been doing it for 50 years, you got this thing. What advice would you give?
I just lead with respect and loyalty, and if you give it, you receive it. And I can talk to any person from somebody that's homeless on the street to somebody in a boardroom that we need to talk about doing a huge transaction. I meet every man and woman on the level everywhere I go, and I just try and treat people right. And I guess sometimes that can be kind of infectious and maybe rub off on people. And I've met a lot of friends and a lot of acquaintances along the way. And when I go places, it's kind of hard for me to not see someone that I know or that I've met, on this journey. And I'm not out to do anything wrong to anybody, so people generally remember you for
sure.
Being a decent human being, I guess.
Kind of like you remembered the leader that you were just talking about a few minutes ago. There was a reason that you remembered that leader.
Yeah.
One of the other topics that comes up a lot, and we get asked this a lot when folks that are sending in questions and so on, is this idea of resiliency. And let me explain what I mean by that is, again, I'm going to use your current profession as a realtor. You got deals that fall through, things fall apart, issues come up, as you mentioned, and there's always a solution to everything. But to keep doing that over and over and to build that resiliency, how do you do that? You weren't born with that, were you?
I just want to succeed.
Yeah.
So, I want to win, and I want the people around me to win.
Yeah.
I want everybody around me to win. If I got any kind of love for you, respect for you, or, any kind of feelings, any kind of relationship, I want you to win. I want to win. And I can't stop.
That's good.
It's in me. I think I was born with it. I come from hardworking people, a hardworking family. I've managed to raise the bar for my kids a little bit, and my family, and I want them to piggyback and grow even more and just keep it going.
Well, again, you're focusing on that other person constantly. I mean, that's a common theme to what you're describing, which is, for any of the leaders that are watching this or soon to be leaders or want to be leaders, let's say that, wanting everybody else to win. You said that a couple of times. Mm-hmm. That's a unique attribute of a really successful leader, is not just taking the win for yourself to say, hey, I'm all that, but to actually making sure that everybody around you is winning is an important principle that every leader's got to know. I think it sounds like you're dead on the money in agreement on that.
I am. I mean, what's life if you're not helping others succeed in the things that they want to do, and it's very rewarding.
So even though you're not managing people, I know you're leading people all the time. You're guiding people, those that need the help and so forth. If you think about the most important leadership lesson you've learned to date, what is it? What comes to mind first?
Always be ready to do the right thing. Always always be ready to do the right thing in anything that you do. And the more you give, the more you'll receive. Um, um,
Take that further now. If you were giving advice to a room full of 100 leaders, beyond that piece of advice, David, just because you've been around a fair amount of time, you've engaged with a ton of people,
yeah.
and you've had a very successful business. What advice would you give to a room full of 100 leaders that are looking to take that next leadership step?
Every leader at one time had to be a good follower.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're leading, make sure that your followers are getting the best of you, I guess, making sure that they're getting the best from you to become successful like you. Yeah, at one time you had to be a good follower.
Yeah,
You followed somebody,
that's what got you to where you are.
so just make sure that you're leading in the right direction.
So aside from the leader that you mentioned earlier that you worked for, if you think about the one or two people that have had a big influence on you from a leadership perspective, aside from him, or are people that you've read or you've seen on TV and you think that's the kind of leader people should be, who comes to mind? Does anybody?
I would be out of line if I didn't mention my two grandfathers.
Okay. Tell me about
Uh,
them.
Well, my one grandfather came from Good Hope, Georgia. His name is Samuel Buck Malcolm. He came to Ann Arbor, Michigan in 1946 during some really rough times in the South. And he came here with little to no education. He started a family here and raised 8 kids plus one, that plus one being me.
You? Yeah.
He was a construction laborer. Taught himself how to read, bought his own home, and took really good care of all of us and made sure that we were good for the 47 years that he and my grandmother were married until he passed away. And then I had another, my mom's father, Gilbert Pitts. He was a custodian. He was a school custodian, one of the first African Americans hired within the Ann Arbor public school system.
Okay.
And he wasn't just a custodian, he was actually a mentor and a leader to a lot of the kids that were in the neighborhood. And there's a documentary out on him right now that's being played at the Ann Arbor District Library that he's included in, and they're honoring him with a plaque on Community High School in Ann Arbor.
Wow.
He was a giver. He just, everywhere he went, on Main Street and, downtown, people knew him. His money was never any good, but it was because he gave so much back to the community that people just respected him. And those were two very important leaders that were very close to me, that taught me how to dress, taught me how to work, taught me how to save, taught me how to, how to culture relationships with people, be a man of your word, stand on your word at all costs, and just be a good person. So
All examples of what a good leader is, period. Whether you're leading by title or you're leading by function, or we're all influencing other people every time we run into them, one form or another.
yeah.
But those are two great
I
stories.
do have one other
Yeah.
one, though. My high school principal, I went to alternative school for at-risk youth, Roberto Clemente Student Development Center in Ann Arbor. And I will say that Joseph Doolin was one of my greatest mentors in my life.
What made him so special?
He was a father to thousands of children that didn't biologically belong to him.
Yeah.
And again, treat people right, do the right thing. You know what I mean? Always be ready to help out where you can, and run your life and operate off of integrity, character, and respect. If you give it, it'll come back.
Well, the whole point of having you on the episode today, David, is I kind of knew your background because you'd shared about some of that to me. But for all of the folks that are watching, we get caught up around leadership as just a title. But you're a perfect example that has nothing to do with the title you have, but it's the impact on the people around you that you've been making that I'm glad you told me, I didn't know about your grandfathers, both of them, that they were the example for you of what a good leader is. You've been a good example to a ton of other people, even without having been their quote unquote titled leader. And that's an example of what leadership is. And it's one of the key attributes that we talk about here at the Lois Leadership Institute. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because I knew some of the things that you were going to be able to share. And you think about the people that are watching, if you had closing comments to somebody who is thinking about being a leader, who thinks leadership is all about a title, what's one or two pieces of key insight you'd give them from your own perspective, David?
Hey man, we all have to lead somewhere, somehow, someone, and just make sure that you're leading them in the right direction. Make sure that you understand that it's not just about you, and the more people you bring with you, the better life will be.
Well, you're a perfect example again of this whole idea that leadership isn't about titles. Leadership is about influence. It's about building trust. You do that with anybody, regardless of your title, and you are technically leading that person. Your grandfathers are a good example of that. The teacher you just talked about is an example of that, and the individual that you worked for some years ago is an example of that. Thank you for sharing all of those things, David, with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. We've got it done.
I'm glad you were able to do it. And for all of you that are watching, it's a little different of a guest than what we've had in the past, but it's by design to talk about the core pieces of leadership, which again is building that influence, building that trust, and caring more about the success of others, because they'll carry you through your own success. That's the important lesson here. And David, you eloquently described it. So thank you for being able to do that. If you have a topic around leadership that you want to talk about and you want to be on the show, please reach out to us. Let's have that conversation. If you've got questions for future, I've got banked up about 150 questions for a number of our leaders, some of which I asked today. Continue to send those to us. And again, thank you for joining Leadership Live. We will see you soon and on the next episode. And again, David, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you.